Hello free spirits and welcome back to my channel. I am Sian Maria. I am a witch and a Norse pagan and I live in my van with my partner and my border collie Faye. In today's video I'm going to be chatting about this month's full moon, so the March full moon, also known as the worm moon. And I'm going to take you along with me on a walk to explore a spot that I found that's full of wild daffodils, and it's really beautiful. So Faye is desperate to go. She has not stopped begging me for ages. So let's go and see what we can find and have a chat about the full moon. So this is the beautiful little daffodil meadow that we came across yesterday. We've been here for a long time and didn't even know this was here. So I'm going to have a little explore, find a nice place to sit down and have a chat about the full moon. So as I spoke about before in my last video about the full moon, we explored the February full moon and we looked at the different names. So each of the full moons have these variety of names, and each of these names are associated with the land which they came from. So the environment in the British Isles was different from the environment in North America, was slightly different from the environment in Europe. So each of these places would have different names. What we do see is themes running through each of these full moon names and the things that they associated with this time, with this month of March, but the specific characteristics may have been a bit different. So there are a few names from America that would have been associated from different tribes and different regions around the country. And one of the names is the worm moon, like I said, that is the modern one that we associate with now. The reason this name would have been apparent, and you may have noticed this too wherever you are, is that the earthworms would have been more active. So as the ground softened, as the ice and the snow melted, the ground would soften and the earthworms can move around more and they start to come out and be seen more. So that's where that name comes from. One of the other names in North America is the crow moon, and this is because the crows would have been one of the first birds to sort of re-emerge. I noticed myself that the crows never really leave, and I've heard this from a lot of other people that I've been speaking to, that the crows don't really leave. They're not really a migratory bird as such, but they just have more activity when the spring starts. So you may have noticed, I've noticed more of the songbirds coming back as we've moved in a little bit into spring, but one of the first birds that would have been noticed would have been the crows. So they would have kind of heralded this start of spring. They're also very associated with kind of messengers, with wisdom. So I really like that link to curiosity. Spring is that like beginning energy. It's a time of starting and hope and learning. So I really love the crows actually with this month to associate with that like curiosity with wisdom and intelligence. And then a couple of the other names are the crust moon and the sap moon. So the crust moon would be very much associated with the more northern places, because the ice or the snow would form this crust before it would start to melt. So again, very connected to those colder countries that would still have the snow and the ice this late into the year. For places like the British Isles, so where I am from, where I'm currently living, we definitely don't get ice and snow this late into the year. So that name for me doesn't resonate at all, because I'm starting to see all the flowers, not still seeing that remnants of snow and ice. Another name that I found was the sap moon, again from North America. The sap from the maple trees would start coming out and being more prevalent, and that's where that name comes from. And then some of the names that I found from the British Isles, so these would have been probably more of Celtic origin, but at least somewhat from the British Isles, were the plough moon, the wind moon and the seed moon. So the plough moon, I actually very much connect that with the worm moon, but just the worm is more of the animal origin and the plough moon is more of the human activity origin. So as with the worm kind of moving through this softening soil, the plough moon again is thinking about softening the soil ready for planting and sowing later on in the spring. And the wind moon is quite self-explanatory. It is a time when there would be a lot more wind, so the wind moon. And the final name that I found, which isn't as strong, but is the seed moon. I personally don't find as much connection with this one because this isn't actually the time that seeds would be being planted just yet. It's more of a time when they would be preparing the soil for the seeds later on in spring. In my research, I didn't find many names from Europe or those kind of more Germanic countries, but it does seem like they didn't really have specific names for their moons. It would have been more about the associations that they had with that month or with that specific time of year. But generally speaking, we do see some common themes across all of these different places, especially from the Northern Hemisphere. They're all connected to this very beginning of spring. So March is one of those first months of spring. So we start to see this thawing of any ice or snow. We start to see first signs of life. This isn't just life under the surface, this is first signs of life actually coming out and showing themselves, as you can see with like the daffodils, those very early spring flowers. We also have the birds returning, so you may notice hearing more bird song, and that's a really lovely sign of the beginning of spring as well. And we also have this softening of the soil, this preparing of the soil, and with that comes this preparation energy. So rather than thinking about this time, this first month of spring being about getting straight into planning things or straight into sort of starting things, this is more about preparation. So if we really associate back to the agricultural connections, we think ploughing the soil and preparing the soil ready to plant. So if you're feeling right now like you're a bit lost, a bit confused, not quite sure where you want to put your energy, don't worry too much. Think more about kind of softening that inner soil before we start preparing and making plans. Right, let's continue exploring and seeing what else we can find. I've also been thinking a lot about the differences between the time when these names originated and how we live our lives now. So obviously, the Earth itself still goes through those same changes. When we're thinking about this month of March, the changes that are happening now compared to the changes that were happening hundreds, thousands of years ago have not changed that much. Obviously, with some types of climate change, things have changed a bit, but generally speaking, we're noticing the same changes. So in these modern times, most of us aren't really connected with ploughing, with sowing seeds. We're also not as connected to gaining more light. So when things were more agricultural, the returning of light would have been significantly more prevalent and significantly more important. So what I want to bring in is how we can connect our modern lives to these changes, to this season, to this time. And this doesn't necessarily mean making these changes more rural. I very much like to live in nature as much as I possibly can, but the changes to modern life do change how I live and compared to how somebody thousands of years ago would live. And what I like to do is take inspiration from the names and the themes that were around in these more ancient times and see how they can be applied or can inspire what I do now. For instance, if we think about the plough moon, if we think about ploughing the fields and preparing the soil ready for sowing later in the season, I then start to relate this to how I go about my projects. So for the most part in the agricultural times, projects would have been to do with agriculture. Whereas now these projects are going to be more life-based. So they could be more work-based, business-based, or even like fitness-based, anything like that. Any of our projects that we're currently, projects or goals that we're currently working on. So what I like to think about right now is how can I prepare that inner soil before I start sowing seeds, before I start making plans, coming up with ideas. How can I prepare my inner world and even my outer world, so my environment, my body, my space, my home. How can I prepare these things, prepare that soil before I start putting things into it ready to grow? I also like to think about this as coming out of winter with thawing. So maybe some of the things that sort of froze with us over the winter have been released. Some of those things are now ready to be re-looked at and reintroduced into our lives, but some of those things might have come through with us that actually don't need to be there anymore. So I feel like this is a really good time during that preparation time of the inner soil and that kind of inner world how can we discern what we want to take with us into this next coming year and what we actually want to leave behind. We may have tried to do some of this in the autumn just gone, but there are going to be some things that have fallen through, or even some things that we planned to take with us into this next year that now winter's gone through. We're like, actually, we don't really want those anymore. So this is a really good time for discernment and just to see what's hanging on and what we don't really want to be taking with us. So like I said before, if you are feeling a little bit lost, a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit like, I don't know where I'm going, it's spring, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing yet, then don't be too hard on yourself. I am very much feeling that. I'm very much resonating with that feeling of, wait a second, everyone's up, the world's come alive and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing yet. So it's okay to be like that for this next month, for this next cycle, and just prepare, just soften. That's the big thing that's been coming up for me, is soften. How can we soften the soil, soften ourselves? One of the images that keeps coming to me is when you first wake up in the morning. So we're thinking we're coming from winter, first thing into spring. It's the first beginning of that day. When you first wake up in the morning and you sort of like stretch and you kind of move your muscles around to kind of warm them up and soften them up before you prepare to get up and do things. So that's the image that's been coming to me, and that's the image that I kind of want to leave there with you, is rather than thinking, okay, I need to get up and start doing and acting and planning things, it's more, how can I just stretch and soften and loosen the tension that I've gained from summer or from the night's sleep, that image of the daytime in the head. Okay, let's keep going. This is a really nice spot too. So you can see the river behind me, and there's like a mini, not a waterfall, but like a little mini movement of water over here. So you can hear it trickling in the background. It's really pretty. There's also just here behind me, like a very, very, very mini little plot of land with sheep grazing back there. So that's really lovely. And hoping maybe to see some little lambs later on in spring. That'll be nice. So with everything that I've been talking about, one of the things that I really want to advocate for people to do is just to get out into nature. Even if you can't get into deep nature, just get outside, somewhere outside of your house, as wild as you can, whatever is possible for you right now. And just see what's going on with your land, seeing the changes that are happening, especially at a time like now when we're moving from winter, Faye's running around exploring, when we're moving from winter into spring. That is such a big shift. This shift from death and rest and really being in the earth, in the darkness, to the light starting to come back, to life starting to come back. So there are some really big shifts going on, and the shifts might not have started happening quite as much yet. There probably are some shifts happening. There will be some changes going on. So I really encourage you to get outside and see what's going on in your land. And what I'm going to do is share some of the things that I've noticed in the past week or so. I've really noticed a massive difference just leading up this week to the full moon. I've just seen so many things happening, and I'm going to try and remember them. I have shots of everything, but I'm going to try and remember to tell you what they are with my words now. I've obviously seen daffodils and found this beautiful daffodil grove, which is absolutely magical. I've seen some more snowdrops, not as many. They've definitely started to wean off, but still seen some snowdrops. And the blossoms are starting to come out. I've seen quite a few different varieties of blossoms. They're not super strong right now, but they are just starting. I've also seen the munkjack deer in this area coming out and making themselves known significantly more than I noticed in winter. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get any shots of them, because whenever I get my camera out to shoot them, they always sort of like hide and run off. So if I can find a shot, I'll put one in here. I've also noticed just new growth. So things budding on trees. So maybe there's some buds coming out on trees. I've noticed some leaves starting to grow where they weren't last month. The laurels are starting to come out. They haven't flowered yet, but they are just starting to bud. And one of my favorite things of spring, pussy willow. This is one of my favorite symbols of spring, so it was really lovely to find this week. And then the less detailed things that you might not notice, but if you kind of look out for them, you will, is that the days are significantly longer now. I think it is a lot later in the day now. It would have been dark at this time in the winter, so the days are significantly longer. The days are significantly brighter. The sun has come back out for us here, We have been having some really dark, really wet, really rainy days last month, and the sun is back and it's making a huge difference. And also, like I said, the birds, I've just been hearing so many more birds, especially first thing in the morning, and it's a really beautiful thing. There's one. And it's a really beautiful thing to be able to wake up to and to just hear that, that joy and that movement and that kind of curiosity of life. Okay, so the sun is going down and I think I'm going to finish my walk there. I've ended back in the beautiful daffodil field. I think I'll be spending a lot of time in here over the next couple of weeks. And I think what I'm going to do now is head back to my van and pull an oracle card and just kind of see what message might want to come up for us for this moon. So let's head back and I'll meet you back in the van. I'm back in the van. It's a little bit later on. I went out and did some stuff. I was going to talk about the blood moon because it is a blood moon today. Today is the full moon, the day I'm recording. A blood moon is a lunar eclipse. So it's when the Earth moves in front, like between the moon and the sun. So it kind of like blocks out the moon, as it were, and it puts a red hue on the moon, which is why it's called the blood moon. But I'm not actually going to go into that any further because, like I said, I was going to talk about it and I haven't really researched it. I haven't really looked into it. I've been focusing much more on the aspects of just the moon of March. So I'm not going to talk about something that I don't know anything about. So maybe at the next blood moon, I'll do a bit more research and talk about that. But for now, I'm going to do an oracle card pull from my Queen of the Moon oracle deck. I use this on the last full moon as well. I like this. I sort of use oracle decks, just whatever one feels best at the time. But since we're kind of very much focused on the moon, this Queen of the Moon oracle deck feels very energetically powerful right now. So I'm just going to wake up my deck and pull a card and see what message wants to come through. Okay, so calling in a message from Grandmother Moon for the collective to see what guidance we need, where our energy needs to be focused, what message wants to come out for this full moon. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, we have number 10, Waxing Gibbous 1, Discernment. Show you the image here. Very interesting. I'm pretty sure I mentioned earlier on in this video, discernment. So discerning what wants to come through with us into the next cycle and into the next year, and what doesn't want to come through. I also love the image here of the cloud around this person's mind. It's really bringing me that idea of softness, of softening in the mind, very specifically because the clouds are around the head. So how can we kind of soften into the mind, soften into our thoughts, and use that discernment in this very soft way? So it's not a case of sort of rifling through things and figuring out what we need to rip away, but it's more, okay, what's actually working? What's sitting with me? What doesn't feel so good? What feels like it's kind of just continuing over from the last cycle or the last year that just isn't really working anymore? It's just not sitting right anymore. This isn't a harsh stripping away of things. It's more this discernment, just having a look, seeing what's working, seeing what isn't working. Also in the imagery here, she's got her hands around what actually looks like to be a planet, because there's a few different planets around her, and she's sort of putting her energy and her focus into this one planet. So I think this is also asking us to discern what wants our focus. So I did just say what wants to move forward with us and what wants to stay behind, but it's also what's actually calling for our focus. Really making sure we have or starting to get a clearer idea of what focus we want moving into this year. I think that's a really beautiful place to end this, on that message. The two main things that have been coming through are softness and discernment. So let me know in the comments what they mean to you. What does softness mean to you? What does discernment mean to you? Are you either feeling that in your life right now, or do you feel like you need to welcome some more of that softness and discernment into your life? Also let me know as well if things are a bit chaotic at the moment. So a lot of people that I've been talking to, we just did a gathering 2 days ago. Me and my sister did a live gathering for the full moon, and a lot of what was coming up was this sort of uneasiness, things feeling a bit lost, feeling a bit out of place. And I think that's where this discernment needs to come in. It's not to say that we're wrong or we shouldn't be feeling lost or out of place. It's just that that's where things are. That's where the energy is at right now. We are also, I believe, in a Mercury retrograde. So that's going to be added on to that sort of level of confusion and the mind being a bit all over the place. So I think this discernment is really calling in to guide and to help and to support that feeling of being a bit all over the place. Thank you for watching today's video, and if you did enjoy it, please do give it a thumbs up. Let me know if there's anything else you would like for me to talk about, whether that's witchcraft, paganism, tarot reading, living in a van. I'm trying to kind of get used to this YouTube thing and figuring out what kind of content to make. So if you have any ideas that you would like to see from me, please do let me know. Look after yourself, keep being free, and I will see you next time.